Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I'm going to touch on something that's probably going to be a little controversial. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people that give me kickback and completely disagree with me, which is totally fine. I always talk about how important confidence is in fishing. So if there are things that you feel strongly about that give you confidence, stick with it. Don't necessarily just do something that I say or someone else tells you to do, because generally speaking, your confidence in the way you work a bait may be better for you than maybe for me or another angler. So stick with what works for you. But one thing that I continue to play around with is when I'm flipping, which is one of my absolute favorite things to do, what is my correct hook? Should I use a straight shank like that? Or should I use an EWG style hook like that? And I continuously go back and forth on this, but I have come up with one conclusion. And that conclusion isn't necessarily which is the right hook to use. I do generally prefer to throw the EWG style hook. I believe that I get better hookup percentage with it, and I lose potentially a few more fish because I think that there's more fish that are skin hooked than your straight shank hook. But I feel like I hook up with more fish, which allows me to catch more fish than the few fish that I might lose more on an EWG style hook. Now, hear me out, guys. This is something the other day I was out fishing, and one thing that I continuously notice with either hook, and more importantly, a straight shank hook, is that if I choose to use a snell knot on a straight shank hook, so a snell knot is a knot that is actually tied around the shank of the hook and the line comes back through the eye. So it's not necessarily a knot like my polymer knot that is tied to the hook line tie itself. What I continuously notice with the snell knot is that I just completely miss more bites, like noticeably more bites. When I was out the other day, the first 4 bites that I had using a snell knot, I missed. I either hooked up for a split second or just completely missed on the hook set. And when I say that, these are bites, these are good, legitimate bites where it's one thump, the fish goes swimming, they've got the bait. So I took the snell knot off and I tied on the straight shank with a polymer knot. And the next 4 bites I got, the last 4 bites of the day, I caught. And it wasn't like even questionable. It was just I hooked up with them. And this is something that I continuously notice. Like, I think a lot of times people debate from a flipping standpoint, should you use a straight shank hook or should you use an EWG style hook? And I think personally, for me, what I keep coming down to is that you should not use a snell knot. A snell knot is what's causing a lot of this debate because most people, when they use a straight shank hook, will tie it with a snell knot because that's what all the pros out there tell you to do. That's been the big fad over the last 5, 6 years, that if you're going to use a straight shank hook, which are, these big new flipping hooks, that you want to tie a snell knot. Now, I'm going to sit here and say I don't think that that's the right thing to do. I think you're okay using the straight shank hook if you're using a polymer or whatever knot you like to use that ties around the eye of the hook. And the reason for that is simply when you go to set the hook with, say, if you're throwing them, and this is a big weight for an example, you can see just the pressure of that weight pushes the point of the hook upwards. So if I let this down, you'll see that the hook point rises up. That's the last thing I want when I'm setting the hook on a fish, because if a fish eats it and I go to pull the hook with a big weight specifically, I'm going to blow that fish's mouth open. The harder I set the hook, the faster and wider I'm going to blow that fish's mouth open. So if I pull really hard, when I blow the fish's mouth open and my hook point is now pointing back towards my weight, a lot of that mouth is going to hit the back side of that hook, which is not going to hook up. I think that's one reason why you miss those bites. Now, if you switch to a hook that's just got a knot on the line tie, your hook point is always facing up. I mean, you can see I'm applying pressure and my hook point is not changing. So my hook point is up. So I've got greater likelihood that a little bit of that fish's tissue will catch the hook point, which then means you can get hook penetration. Now, I think there's argument to be had that you may skin hook more fish with an EWG style hook versus a straight shank hook. But that's not what my conclusion is with this. I mean, this is something I've been working on for years because when I switched to a straight shank hook, I was using a snell knot because that's what I was told you had to do. And my hookup percentage dropped drastically. Now, I feel like with a straight shank hook that when you hook them, they're coming in the boat. I don't feel like I lose nearly as many fish with a straight shank, but I miss so many more bites. And that's a big issue for me. Now, over the last couple of years in my experimenting, when I tie a straight shank with a polymer or a knot that goes right to the hook eye that keeps the point of the hook facing straight up, I don't miss nearly as many fish. So my conclusion on this, and I know there's other anglers out there that agree with me, that your snell knots are actually what's causing you to miss those bites. So, in my opinion, guys, I do not think if you're a flipper, especially the bigger the weight, that you do not want to use a snell knot. I know this goes against the book, but I really truly believe this, and I think it's something that you guys might want to try as well. Because if you've been missing fish using a snell knot with a straight shank hook or even an EWG, because I know there's a lot of you out there that like to tie a snell knot on an EWG style hook, I think you need to stop or at least experiment with it and come up with your own conclusions. Let me know what you guys think. I would love to get some feedback on this because, in my opinion, the debate about straight shank versus EWG is not the correct debate. It's whether or not you should use a snell knot on either style hook, because the snell knot, in my opinion, is what's causing us to have the debate, that incorrect debate about which hook to use. So let me know, guys, are you a snell knot fan? If so, do you think it works better? Do you think it's preventing you from catching fish? Do you think the knot has no place in the flipping world? Because that's the conclusion that I've come up with. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know in the comment section if you enjoyed the video, whether you agree or disagree, because we can all have our own opinions. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and stay tuned for another episode coming out tomorrow.